Welcome! Today, we're jumping right in to tackle one of the most requested topics in Islamic finance, currency trading. Our goal here is to build a super clear, easy-to-follow rulebook based directly on the official Shariah Standard, so you'll know exactly how to navigate this pretty complex market.
So let's just get right to it. Here's the big question that probably brought you here in the first place. When you look at the Forex market with its insane speed and global scale, is it even possible to trade in that world and stay true to Sharia principles? And the answer, straight from the standard, is a very clear yes. It is totally permissible. But, and you knew there was a but coming, right? This is a huge one. It's not some kind of free-for-all. You can think of it like a game that has a very, very specific set of rules you have to play by. So, let's learn them. All right, here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to cover the basic ruling first, then we'll dive into the single most important rule of the game. After that, we'll look at the stuff that's absolutely forbidden, see how this all works with modern tech, explore some compliant ways to manage your risk, and then at the very end, we'll give you a handy checklist to take with you. Okay, let's get into it. First things first. What's the fundamental ruling? What does the standard actually say about the basic idea of just exchanging one currency for another? So the baseline is, yes, trading is allowed, but you've really got to stick to the script. The standard lays out these key conditions, like the exchange has to be equal if you're swapping the same currency, a dollar for a dollar. You have to totally avoid all the forbidden stuff, which we'll get into in a minute, and this is the big one. There can be absolutely no delays in the settlement. None. And that brings us to, honestly, the single most important concept in this entire framework. If you can get this one thing right, you've pretty much understood the very core of halal currency trading. And here it is. It's called al-qabḍ. This is the golden rule. It basically means the exchange has to be immediate, on the spot. Both sides have to take possession of the currencies right then and there in the same sitting. You can't make a deal today to exchange the money tomorrow. It all has to happen right now. But you're probably thinking, what does possession even mean when I'm just clicking a button online? And that's where the standard is actually brilliant. It makes this key distinction between actual possession, physically handing over cash, and something called constructive possession. That's just a legally recognized transfer of control. And that little concept, that's what makes all of modern digital trading possible. And here's how that ancient principle works today. Constructive possession happens the second your broker credits your trading account, or when a check finally clears, or when funds get deposited. As long as you gain immediate legal control over that money, that condition of al-qabḍ, of on-the-spot possession, has been met. Okay, so we've got the golden rule down. Now let's look at the fouls that get you an immediate red card. These are the practices that the standard says are an absolute no-go. And prohibition number 1 is trading in forward currency markets. This is the perfect example of why. So a forward contract is basically an agreement today to trade at some point in the future. By its very definition, it delays the settlement. Possession doesn't happen on the spot, so it completely shatters the golden rule of al-qabḍ, which makes it impermissible. Simple as that. And the list of red cards keeps going. First up, binding promises from both sides to trade in the future, that's out. But what's interesting is a promise from just one side, that can actually be okay. Next, trading with leverage. Using borrowed money that you don't actually have, that's forbidden. And finally, your broker can't lend you money and then say you can only trade with them. That's a no-no. So, how does all of this work in the real world? When you're just sitting there with your trading platform open? Let's take a look at how these rules apply to modern digital tools. So here's the crucial thing to remember. The technology itself isn't the problem. Using an online platform is totally fine, as long as a trade has the exact same immediate legal effect as if you did it in person. The same logic applies to using a broker. They're just your agent, and their job is to complete that on-the-spot possession for you. The principle never changes, no matter what tool you're using. Okay, so if you can't use forward contracts to protect yourself against future currency swings, what are you supposed to do? This is a huge issue for businesses and investors. But thankfully, the standard does provide some permissible alternatives for hedging. This is the real-world challenge, right? You have expenses or revenue coming in a foreign currency down the line, and you need to protect yourself from the market moving against you. So without forwards, how do you get that stability? So how do you build a defensive strategy that's compliant? Well, instead of forbidden forwards, you can use other Sharia-compliant tools. For instance, two parties can just give each other interest-free loans in different currencies. Or you can use that unilateral promise we mentioned, where only one person commits to a future trade, which avoids that forbidden mutual agreement. The key difference in all of these methods is that they're structured to avoid the uncertainty and the delayed, binding exchange that makes a regular forward contract a problem.
Whew, okay, we've covered the principles, the rules, and the modern-day applications. So let's bring it all home and boil it down into a final scorecard. A super simple checklist you can run through before you make a single trade.
Think of this like your pre-trade ritual. Before you even think about clicking buy or sell, just ask yourself these questions. Is the settlement happening right now? Am I only using my own money? Am I staying away from forwards? If you can honestly tick every single one of these boxes, then you're on the right track and operating inside the guidelines of the Shariah Standard.
And that really just leaves us with one final thought to chew on. These rules, they're rooted in these deep principles of certainty and avoiding speculation, and they were designed for a very different world. So in today's super fast global market, do they act as a necessary shield from taking on too much risk, or are they a barrier to legitimate opportunities? That right there is a question every trader has to think about. Thanks so much for joining this explainer.